The famous Indian poet Tagore once wrote, "I have a guitar string. It is not attached to anything, so I can freely twist it in my hand into different shapes. The string bounces back and forth, but it makes no sound. But when I tie the string to a guitar, tightly fixed at both ends and fully stretched all its length, I could use my fingertip to create music. The string is no longer free on its own, but being attached to the guitar. Yet, it is still free to create music." The same thing happens when I plant tomatoes in the garden. If the tomato plant is free to crawl on the ground, it wouldn't be able to get sunlight, and rain would crush the leaves with soil. But when I tie the stem of the tomato plant to a pole or to a frame, it would grow straight up towards the sun, and the tomatoes would be clean and juicy, hanging down from green and healthy leaves. It is because of being attached to a frame that the tomato plant produces good fruits. Our modern society today seems to tell us to be free from all attachment. Freedom is one of the biggest ideas here in the US, at least. But it is simply an illusion and a fantasy. As humans living in this earthly world, we are always attached, at least to someone or something. Because life itself is interconnected and relational, we can never truly be free from this earthly world. Instead of looking for such a fantasized freedom, we are invited to rely on our faith for the freedom that is true. Now, Jesus tells us today that without Him, we can do nothing. The attachment and dependence of us on Jesus do not take away our freedom, but extend it upwards. Just like a guitar string being attached to the guitar and the tomato plant being attached to the frame in the garden, our attachment on God and on Jesus would help bringing the best out of us. So the first thing I'd like to share with you today is that freedom in this world is limited and biased. In order to be truly free, we are called to attach ourselves to God, who is the ultimate source of life, of goodness, and of love. Our connection with God would bring out the best of us. And you may notice that in just the 8 verses of the short gospel today, there are 8 times that Jesus used the verb to remain. Based on a quick Google search for the definition of the verb to remain, I found out that to remain means to continue to exist, especially after all the similar or related people or things have ceased to exist. I think Jesus didn't want to use the verb to stay, but He instead used to remain because He knew for sure that with His passion and death on the cross, challenges and doubts would shake His disciples' faith, would shake their hope, and would shake their life to the core, and that many would give up on Him and abandon their faith. Looking at the reality of our Catholic Church today, many of us would feel shaken and doubtful as well because of the so many scandals and arguments that are happening in our church. And the number of participating Catholics have been decreasing everywhere. But you are here. You remain. From the time Jesus started His mission until today, it is always clear to us that following Jesus is not an easy task. It has never been an easy task. But history has proven that following Jesus, we follow Him because it is difficult, not because it is easy. When a hard task is accomplished, those who remain to the end could receive the reward that many have chosen to give up. So the second thing that I'd like to share with you today is that we are called to be faithful and patient, to be able to remain with Jesus to the end, and to receive the good fruits that only those who will persevere could receive. And finally, it would be a big mistake on my part if I don't mention the image of the vine and the branches from the gospel today. As we heard in the first reading, St. Paul used to be a famous persecutor of Christians back in the days, and people were afraid of him even after he converted. But Jesus personally chose him and converted him so that he could use his own experience as an outsider, as a persecutor, to go out and reach out to people and ask them to return to the faith. So in our eyes, in our human eyes, St. Paul looked like an infected branch that deserved to be cut off from the tree. But in Jesus' eyes, proper care provided for that branch would make it produce much, much better fruit than cutting it off. In our family, in our community, and in our society, sometimes we are too quick to cut people off. We are too quick to attempt to do so because of our judgment, because of jealousy, because of our hatred toward them. It is much easier to cut people off than to include them. We didn't even bother to stop to think about their potentials and goodness if they are provided with proper care from our part. So, brothers and sisters, let us spend some moments today to reflect on the three things that I've just shared with you. First, instead of being free to satisfy our own pride in this world, we are invited to be truly free by attaching ourselves to the true source of life, our true source of hope, our true source of love, God. Second, we are called to be faithful and patient, to be able to remain with Jesus to the very end of our life, and to receive the good fruits that only those who persevere could receive. And third, instead of caring for only for ourselves, let us remember that we are all connected as branches from the same vine. The well-being of one would serve the goodness of all. Become truly free by attaching ourselves to God. Remain with Jesus to receive the good fruits from Him, and care for one another for the common good of all. May God, who has begun a good work in us, also bring it to fruitful completion. Amen.